All right, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. For today's video, we're gonna do this how supports the cult of productivity. This is quite actually a popular video within the 2021 HWS round robin. I'd encourage you to watch that video if you can. Fantastic one. It was actually just like really close of a mimic of the 2021 grand final, except the opening was just switched. And I think it was a great debate. It's really instructive, and the call was also reflective of at least definitely how close it was as well, and some advanced techniques that I think people could always learn from in terms of developing a comparative, contextualizing the debate, and framing. So for this debate, the info side was the call to productivity refers to a set of norms where being continuously productive and busy in both your professional and personal life is seen as desirable and virtuous. All right, so let's get right into it. Prepping from opening opposition, which is the position we were in when we did this debate. So I would just say a few things that are quite important, even if you look at this from a very like concrete and basic perspective. The reason as to why the cult of productivity is important when we're highlighting the cult aspect of it is that it is it's a cultural norm. It is a it refers to a community of individuals that opt in to this narrative and our culture. And so part of the debate definitely is how does the cult of productivity manifest in a vast majority of instances, in many cases, because even from looking at the info slide, it's quite clear that the debate is teetering between the concept of you are continuously productive, you are busy in both your professional and personal life. That this is a good thing. You should be busy, you should be productive. Your conception of productivity is something that you can maximize so long as you apply it in every realm of your life, your professional or non-professional life. And so I think, as what you would see in the video or in the actual debate that happened when this motion was released, it's quite advantageous actually for a government side or opening government to frame this debate as, well, the cult of productivity functions as a counterbalance. Like OG um, could say the cult of productivity is a counterbalance against the existing norm of overworking and pressuring yourself in a hyper competitive and toxic workplace. Like opening government could frame it that way. They could say that definitely people overwork already. And that's why the cult of productivity is a counterbalance to say that you should do it in your professional and your personal life. You should be productive and you should rest. You should take a break. These are more productive things for you in the long run. It's like, it's kind of like slow productivity, like being able to focus on quality rather than just overworking yourself in the traditional way that you might have otherwise thought it to be the case. So I think that's a fantastic opening government frame. But even without knowing that OG might do that, like it's also continuously possible that opening government could just go hard line. Like opening government could just say it is good to be productive in your professional workplace, or OG could say it is good to be productive in your workplace, and this productivity means a lot of good things. Like they could spam all the benefits of, like, just more promotions, more money. The cult of productivity gives you the tools. Like the cult of productivity gives you the tools that allow you to get those promotions and get your bag. That's fantastic, right? Like I know that this is possible. So from a conceptual perspective, then this is quite important. Like that opening government could frame the clash in quite a different way, right? Like these are two different ways in which it's possible that the cult of productivity could manifest in the first way. It's also possible it could manifest in the second way. And they could be reasonable and justified in making the debate that way. So if I were opening opposition, my clash would simply be this. I want to stabilize the debate and be clear on where the debate takes place, what is the most likely manifestation. It's also in my interest to try and say, this is the debate, guys. Let's not get carried away with this idealistic version of what the cult of productivity looks like, and let's just debate the debate on these terms. So I would say we oppose the cult of productivity, and specifically oppose the most likely manifestation of this, which is the following. I would say the following, and this is the part where I would be very, very critical in building the comparative, or building what it likely looks like. The cult of productivity is captured and hijacked and subsumed within the broader pressures to work harder. And so it is more likely that the cult of productivity manifests as incredibly toxic and disproportionate. Disproportionate in the sense that you are expected to work so much in your job and be so busy in your life. Number two, I think that it would also say that, like, the cult of productivity, even in better cases, creates an ideal of busyness and an ideal of being productive in all parts of your life, which is simply unrealistic for a vast majority of people, and it creates more unhappiness in the world. Sorry for the all caps, guys. I'm really just thinking on the fly here, and I really, really love this case because the first part manifests in saying that, yeah, I'm responding to the first clash in a very direct way. No, that's not how it works. The second part of the clash is just explaining that, yeah, even if we merge like a middle ground between the first and the second, it's quite definitely the case that it is still inaccessible for a vast majority of people. It doesn't provide you with those tools, and it makes more unhappiness in the world. So actually, I would use this characterization to already begin making my argument. So I would say the first argument would simply be that the cult of productivity over pressures people to and sets unrealistic expectations. So the premise of this argument would simply be, I don't know, I'm thinking about how to build this argument right now. I would say the following, right? I would say the cult of productivity is a narrative that is likely driven by the worst excesses of hyper productivity culture for the following reasons. Cult of productivity likely manifests in a very, very bad way because there is likely a tendency to maximize social media insecurity and social comparisons by highlighting the extreme levels of productivity that other individuals are able to experience. There's likely this is highly likely to be commercialized by influencers and by the self-help industry. So I actually, while building this argument, I already know that I could add some impacts within the analysis. Like, it's quite a different way to build an argument, but I'm already quite actually I actually love this actually. So the second mechanism, I know that it's highly commercialized. People are made to spend thousands of dollars to access the cult of productivity. The first mechanism, I know the impact of that is that people spend so much time on so much more time feeling busy and feeling productive when they are simply getting more and more addicted to the cult of productivity. So actually, like, they actually are not as productive as they think they are, because they're just more and more immersed in the cult of productivity. Second, they're commercialized by influencers in the self-help industry. And then third, I think it's also simply the case that there's a discussion of the narrative and the pressure that people feel. I would say that the the cult is also driven by um the cult is also driven by, in the best case, is also driven in the best case by your own um goals and expectations, which are also likely um flawed and are likely driven by the um by your own personal experiences of success and failure, which are significantly variable. And the impact of this is that you adapt all of these expectations to your own life and to your own work when the resources and effort that you put in usually will not always align, because people have competing obligations all of the time. So I think it's fine. This argument is actually very beefy already. We've already added an impact for every single part of the argument. I think the conclusion of this argument eventually is that people just like, what's the implication? The implication of this argument: people cannot find a proper balance. They are sorry. That is actually so there's another middle analysis, or a middle part of this argument that's quite necessary to add in. So what does this mean? It means that the most likely manifestation of the goal of what productive is always measured in terms of promotions, of money, and a highly consumerist understanding of productivity and busyness. And why is this likely the case? Because it is the most measurable and concrete and visible way to assess productivity, because like resting is objectively like objectively like un is objectively sorry, because resting is very subjective, and it is unclear how it immediately translates to those gains. And then probably another reason for why it likely manifests in this way is because we know that being productive is it's a lifestyle. The cult of productivity is one that consumes your entire life, and you have to share it with everyone in terms of what your output actually is in the world. So you are still continuously, inevitably pressured to actually be good at what you are doing. And so I think that the argument ends with the argument with that the end it ends with the argument of the implication, which is people cannot find this proper balance. They're actually doubly pressured, and this is bad. I actually now know that the vulnerability of this entire case is that I need to talk about the comparative on our side. What happens absent the cult of productivity? What happens outside of that? And I think that it would be the following, and I would do this in the second argument immediately, that absent the cult of productivity, it would be easier to develop a cult of contentment and a cult of easing back away from work. And I probably would say why this is directly trade off. against the cult of productivity. Um, I would say most people have families, other social obligations, other hobbies that exist outside of work. Maybe you might want to talk about like the culture of quiet quitting, the culture of um asking for more flexible work schedule, etc., etc. I would say that these cultures directly trade off with a cult of productivity because it's a generational thing. It's also something that you do early on in your career. It's something that's non-traditional, it's the leverage that people have. And I would say that this is good on our side because it is also cult and pressure that employers have to adapt to and have an incentive to accommodate, because there are definitely a high number of high performing and high potential individuals who also seek this type of easier lifestyle. I know that right now at the end of prep time, I definitely would need to build this a lot more and then talk about why family is important or why these other social obligations are important. Maybe the end of this argument would be like something about freedom, autonomy, control over your life. That's fantastic with me. I'm good with that. But right now, just for the purposes of this prep time and creating this clash, it actually is quite important that we already addressed this potential clash, or the clash as OG would say, and that we'd respond in this particular way. Like spending majority of prep time for this, in my opinion, is quite indeed the most important part of this debate already, and I'm already satisfied with this. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day and enjoy, and hopefully you took from this video that yeah, when you're creating a clash, it's also very helpful to always think about what flexibility does OG have, and how does it collapse into like one reasonable clash, or what is the most reasonable clash that could eventually come up, and then think of how can I control the debate then with my clash at OO without veering away from like what I actually have to address. In this debate, it definitely is addressing that my comparative is not a cult of productivity. That's the minimum clash, and I have to explain what that looks like outside of that. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day and enjoy.